What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Drew Dekes channel. A rare Saturday night non-game day for the Montreal Canadiens. So, wanted to come on here and talk about a few things with you guys. A few things that I learned actually from Vincent Lecavalier's press conference yesterday that I didn't know until this morning when I actually finally watched it. So, a few things we're going to talk about really quickly here on this video. One is, how is Lecavalier going to help the Habs with free agency and recruitment? Because as we know, he's joined the hockey operations department, and he went into a little bit more detail about how he's going to do that with the Montreal Canadiens. We also learned that Vinny actually helped to recruit Emil Heinamen in the Tyler Toffoli trade, which is interesting because he helped to do that before actually coming on board officially as a member of the hockey operations department. So that I thought that was interesting as well. So if Heineman doesn't work out, we can blame it on Vinny. All right. So, and Vinny also mentioning here, just, pumping his old teammates' tires, of course, but he did say that he thinks that Marty is one of the best coaches and just period, point blank. And obviously not a lot of experience to come from, but knowing Marty in the room, we'll get to this in a second, actually, but I want to just fire through the topic. So we will get to this in a second. And then lastly, the topic here that I'm going to end with is not everyone is on board for the Habs rebuild. Max Lapierre, Norman Flynn, who calls into the TSN 690 radio station, a couple of comments that they made that I just thought were interesting, and getting a general pulse from maybe a small minority of the Habs fan base here. Okay, so let's go back to the top again. And how is Vinny going to do it? So how is Vincent Lecavalier going to help the Habs with free agency and recruitment? It's interesting because we all know that Vinny wasn't potentially willing to come play for the Montreal Canadiens. And even if he was, a trade just never really seemed to manifest or work out. My sense from that is simply that just the right trade was never there. The right market was never there for Vinny. That's why he never came and played. So how can we trust Vinny to be the one to recruit players when he wouldn't be recruited himself? That's somewhat out of his hands, right? So I think that's a better question for Kent Hughes if we really want to know. But Kent Hughes, of course, was Vinny's agent, and therefore we know that there's a past history there. Vinny had the opportunity to work with several player agents, and he ended up choosing Kent Hughes in the long run, and now they're circling back to work together again here. And I think there's something to be had to that, because now Vinny can give back what Kent was able to give Vinny, and that is, of course, not in the same way, but this is a give and take relationship that they've developed. So Vinny is now being trusted to help with player recruitment, which is interesting. And we saw this already with the recruitment of Emil Heinamen. We don't know. That's the wind, by the way. It's very windy here in Niagara. So nobody's whistling or there's no train going by. But we know that Heineman Vinny had his eyes on Heineman as part of this deal, and nobody knows a great deal other than the highlights that we saw on social media and on YouTube about Emil Heinamen and the potential that he has. He has some size, he has some skill. He's a forward, of course. A few people wanted to throw at the very lofty, my gosh, his name is escaping me for a second here, but many people wanted to throw out the lofty comparison to Leon Draisaitl, which of course is very, very early. We don't know enough about him yet to make that comparison, but Vinny's looking for the potential right now. He's helping to have another set of eyes around leagues across the world that will help to bring in players. And of course, this includes in free agency. So this is not just about prospects. Vinny will be working, of course, to help bring in free agents in the offseason to the Montreal Canadiens, having conversations with players. I don't know how you're not excited about this, Habs fans, but anyway, let's jump in. And I did mention this already, so this was part of it. I did mention the Heineman thing here, so that's another title. We'll skip through now to Vinny talking about Marty St. Louis, his former teammate, why he thinks he's one of the best coaches, and that is because he's been in the locker room with Vinny has been in the locker room with Marty. He knows how he operates. He knows how his mind works, and he knows that Marty knows the pulse of his team, and he can get a good sense for it. So that's why, even though it's only been a week, barely a week, maybe just over a week now that Marty's been interim head coach, he has a good pulse for the room, and he's going to figure out who wants to be here and who doesn't. I've mentioned this previously on other videos. So I think that's where, Vinny has some good insight on a lot of things, including the reason that Marty St. Louis is the head coach. And I want to just jump right into this. Okay, so not everyone is on board for the Habs rebuild, and this ties into Max Lapierre's comments, translated from French, so I'm going to do my best to translate here myself. But Max kind of, making comment about how the new Habs brass, the new Habs front office is an old boys. I don't know that it's an old boys club, but it's like a country club, right? So that was kind of the comment that Max made, and it sounds like a bitter comment. It sounds like sour grapes to me, coming from Max Lapierre, who doesn't have a great reputation as a very great teammate. You can ask other players around the league. Now, is that a personal shot at Max? No, but that's an opinion from players that has been shared. So to me, that comment is simply sour grapes, and maybe Max, you know, being a French guy, of course, too, would like to be involved with the Montreal Canadiens organization. He was a fan favorite for a while until the story came out about him and Guillaume Latendresse that they were too buddy-buddy for the Habs locker room. And, sure enough, they're on their own show together, whatever. But that's just sour grapes to me. As far as Norman Flynn goes, a guy who calls in to talk with, Tony Marinaro on TSN 690 quite often, just talking about how they're embracing a losing mentality in Montreal now. That's what's happening, is that the Canadiens are going for this rebuild, and it's just embracing losing for several years. And that's not what the Montreal Canadiens are about. At least that's the sentiment I'm getting from him. And I understand that. However, everybody needs to get with the times. Kind of like Chantal Maccabi said, the new director of communications for the Montreal Canadiens. That includes the fan base. That includes the media. We have to move on with the times and realize that this is something the Montreal Canadiens have never really gone through, and that is projecting potential more losing on purpose. Now, are they trying to lose? No, you got Marty St. Louis that's trying to eventually put together a winning team as a coach, but also Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have to do the back work, and that includes having to let go of some very key pieces, possibly looking at Carey Price, possibly Brendan Gallagher. There's a lot of calls about Josh Anderson, which I talked about with Nick Kyprios on Habs Tonight yesterday. I don't think the Habs want to move on from Josh Anderson, was what Kyprios was saying. But anyway, not everybody's on board for the rebuild, but regardless, I think they are going to do a rebuild, but I just don't think they've come out and outright said it. It'll just be shocking if the Habs don't get great offers for Brendan Gallagher, Carey Price, going forward. Jeff Petrie is a question mark, of course, so you got to get a decent enough return for him. But not everyone's on board for the rebuild. I don't fully understand why, but that's just how it is. Let me know your comments, guys. Are you on board for the rebuild? What do you think about Vincent Lecavalier and his new role, and how, more specifically, a little bit more in detail here, he's going to help with player recruitment, free agency? And also next week, guys, I'm going to be attempting this for one of the Habs games coming up. It won't be tomorrow against Minnesota. I think we're playing. No, it's the Islanders. And then we play the Leafs on Monday. But I will be doing my first live stream, watch a game with me. Not to copycat anybody else that's doing it. We all know Steve Dangle does his thing. But I want to try it. I actually like to do color commentary and have some fun and entertain you guys while watching the Montreal Canadiens game. Of course, for copyright, I can't have the stream on while you're watching me watch the game, but while you're watching it, you can watch with me and we can have some fun. I want to try it out. It'd be a lot of fun to try this with you guys. Also, do check out the video that I'm going to post right up here if you want to have a good laugh about when I was thinking that Vinny Lecavalier was going to be potentially joining the Montreal Canadiens, and now it happened. But I did react a little earlier to the possibility of it happening, and now it did. Not as the assistant GM, but as part of the hockey operations department, which is still just as exciting as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm encouraged. Even though more losing might be on the way for the Canadiens, it's going to lead to more winning long-term and for more seasons. So that's what I'm trying to focus on. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in the next one.